As leaders in plant health, BASF will help our growers navigate this emerging new disease, tar spot, and we are committed into putting the time and resources to better understand this pest and to help manage it. Managing tar spot is a total agronomic approach. The three things that I preach are: number one, hybrid placement; number two, agronomy, or having the proper fertility on the farm; and number three, a total fungicide approach in controlling all of our diseases. So let's talk about having the right hybrid on the acre. We do know there are some differences between corn hybrids. They still are all susceptible to tar spot. We need to remember that. Some handle it better than others. But I would also say that placing that correct hybrid on the right acre helps to reduce tar spot by taking stress off the plant, such as making sure you've got a very defensive hybrid that goes on a corn-on-corn acre, or a hybrid that we know works well in that corn-on-corn environment, which is obviously tougher and has a higher amount of disease pressure in it due to overwintering residue. If we place a very racy hybrid on some tough ground, that's going to create stress tissue, which tar spot loves to go into. On top of that, we want to make sure that we've got our proper fertility. We don't want to be running out of nitrogen, potash, creating that stress tissue. Again, tar spot loves stress tissue, and that's where that infection wants to go. So we want to have a good fertility to our corn plants. And then third, we want to have an all-encompassing fungicide program. Not all fungicides are created equal, and we want to control tar spot. We have to worry about our other diseases, like northern corn leaf blight, like southern rust, light gray leaf spot, and several others. I've seen northern corn leaf blight and tar spot have over a 50 bushel yield loss per acre if we have those two diseases starting before tassel. I've also seen this year, which is new to me, I've seen crown rot, which is an infection that takes place early in the plant's life when it's just a couple inches tall, along with tar spot, that infection occurs before tassel. The combination of those two diseases, again, I'm seeing it, what we see is we see the plants die early, and that's creating not only yield loss from the plants dying early, but also it's going to create lodging, and it's going to be a harvest issue, which we could lose more yield there as well. So again, not every fungicide is created equal. Some fungicides are going to be weak on some of those diseases that I talked about, so we want to make sure that we're using the proper product. And we want to make sure that we're using a fungicide that's going to control all those diseases. Fungicide like Veltima, which has a long-lasting residual. We can apply it as the infection's coming in. And again, we want to be in front of the infection. We don't want to be on the back side of it, because our residual is going to be doing most of the work for us there. So my recommendations are, if we see infection come in early, say late June, we may need 2 applications. When we do that, we could come in with, say, 10 ounces of Headline Amp, followed up by 7 ounces of Veltima R2. So that Headline Amp application would be happening at B12, so before tassel. If we see our infection, tar spot infection, taking place maybe, say, around the 4th of July, you can probably get by with just that VT R1 application of 7 ounces of Veltima. Should be in front of that infection enough. The last thing I want folks to do is to time their fungicide application with the stage of the corn. And that's kind of what we've been doing in the past. Tar spot doesn't care what stage the corn is in when it starts infection. It's more about the disease triangle and having the right conditions for infection, like that 60 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, like having that leaf wetness for extended periods of time. So we may get infection in corn when it's V10 or R1 or R2. Biggest thing is we need to have our application done before infection takes place. BASF fungicides, Priaxor, Headline Amp, Veltima, and Revitec, these are all products that are labeled for tar spot control in corn, and they work well. My recommendations are, if we have an early infection taking place, so if we know we start seeing lesions around the end of June, I'm recommending 2 passes. That could be either 10 ounces of Headline Amp at that V10, V12 initial infection time frame, followed up with 7 ounces of Veltima at R1, R2, or 2 shots of Veltima, or Preaxor up front, followed by Veltima. These are all great options for protecting it against tar spot, especially if that infection's coming in early. Again, we want to make sure that we're in front of that infection. If we're seeing infection come in a little bit later, say we start finding lesions around the 4th of July, right when tassels are starting to come out, probably get by with 1 shot of Veltima. And I'm going to recommend Veltima just for its long residual to get us all the way to black layer. Our acres at highest risk are, again, going to be those continuous corn acres or acres that had corn the year before, because that disease is going to be overwintering in that residue. So that's going to be top priority. Other fields are still going to be at risk because we know once the lesions occur, spores are going to be right behind and they're going to start moving around, especially if we've got a lot of storms blowing that inoculant around the fields.